I've probably received hundreds of comments asking, what is this mouse, since it first appeared on my desk around 6 months ago. This is the Elecom Huge, an 8-button, fully programmable trackball, but what makes it so special, and why do I have 3 of them? Today's video is brought to you by the Manscaped Performance Package, which includes the Lawnmower 3.0, along with everything else to take care of your grooming needs. Put down the disposable razor and get yourself one of these. The Lawnmower 3.0 is wireless, rechargeable, and IPX7 rated, so you can safely trim the hedges in the shower. Plus, with its skin-safe technology, you won't end up tilling instead of just trimming. Also in the package are the Shears 2.0 for your nails, crop preserver and toner sprays, and the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, which I didn't imagine myself needing in my mid-30s. Go to manscaped.com/craftcomputing to get 20% off, free international shipping, and 2 free gifts. That's manscaped.com/craftcomputing. Your balls will thank you. Welcome back to Craft Computing, everyone. As always, I'm Jeff. Before starting this channel, I was an IT professional for about 13 years, with nearly the entire last decade of that career spent sitting at a desk for 8 hours at a time, followed by me driving home and tinkering with my own systems. So, long story short, I've spent a large chunk of my life in front of a computer. As such, I try to keep my posture and ergonomics in mind at all times. In my studio, I have both of my chairs and desks adjusted to the proper height, so my feet can sit flat on the floor, and my arms can be at 90-degree angles. My wrists don't rest on the keyboard most of the time when I'm typing, and as far as my mouse, well, I'm kind of a claw grip type, so naturally I rotate or extend my wrist when moving the mouse around my desk. Ultimately, this led to bouts of tendinitis and a fair bit of wrist pain just from using my PC for as long as I did every day. Something needed to change in my setup, but I also needed the functionality and accuracy of a high-end mouse. So, meet the Elecom Huge. As I mentioned, this is an 8-button, fully programmable trackball designed to keep your wrist as stationary as possible without compromising on features or function. Before we dive in too much further, I want to mention that Elecom did not send me any of the devices you see here. All of them were purchased off Amazon over the last couple years, and in fact, Elecom doesn't even know I exist. The Huge comes in 2 varieties, wired and 2.4 GHz wireless. There's nothing physically different between the two, aside from the battery compartment and power switch on the wireless model. While the trackball does still indeed use a ball for tracking, as the name clearly implies, this isn't your dad's ball mouse either. Gone are the 2cm rubber ball driving a pair of analog rollers. This is actually an optically tracked 5.2cm ball on a set of 2.5mm synthetic ruby bearings. Thanks to the, well, huge trackball that Elecom used here, it's both incredibly smooth as well as accurate. The large size makes small, precise movements very easy to achieve, which is a major shortfall of some smaller trackballs I've tried out in the past. As I made the permanent switch to a trackball out of comfort and ergonomic reasons, I'm very happy to report it was money well spent, which is why I now own 3 Elecom trackballs. They advertise the Huge as being, quote, specifically designed based on 6 specific points in the hand and how muscles and skeletal systems interact. In short, the points where your hand makes contact with the trackball are cushioned and contoured to your hand, and it fits my hand like a glove. There are 2 types of trackballs you'll find out in the wild, finger tracking and thumb tracking, and the difference is exactly what it sounds like, and I've used both extensively over the years. My personal preference has landed on finger tracking being the most comfortable and easy to use. The layout of the buttons is also very well thought out on the Elecom Huge. Your index and middle finger manipulate the trackball, while your ring and pinky rest on the 2 buttons to the right, one on a right click and the other on a function button. There are 2 more function buttons to the left of the trackball, easily reached by simply curling your index finger. As far as buttons go, your thumb has the most work assigned to it, with the left click, scroll wheel, and forward and back navigation buttons. The wheel is ratcheted, yet very smooth and responsive. That said, I would love to see Elecom incorporate the Logitech-style freewheel design, so you can select between open mode or ratcheted scrolling. It's a minor ask, but one that I think would add even more functionality to this already great mouse. The scroll wheel also serves as a button, just like every other mouse that's on the market today. The default action is to toggle auto-scrolling, which is the arrow that you can move up and down with your cursor and have the page scroll up and down. The scroll wheel can also be tilted up or down to scroll left or right. But as I mentioned, the mouse is fully programmable, meaning any button on the mouse can be custom configured to nearly any function. Pre-configured on the mouse are all of your standard mouse inputs: left click, right click, scroll directions, forward and back buttons for your browser, and center click for auto-scrolling. Through the Elecom software, though, you can customize any of the 8 buttons and 2 scroll wheel tilt directions to any number of custom functions. From standard mouse input remapping to keyboard macros, even application launching, the software makes it easy to set up your mouse in a way that's most convenient for you. I currently have my Huge set up with function 3 as mute and function 1 and 2 as zoom in and out. Having a single button set up for zoom is a massive help when doing our Talking Heads live shows, allowing me to resize web content on the fly for the on-screen display. Lastly, let's talk why do I have 3 of these mice, all with very similar features. The first in my collection was this one here on the right. It's the Elecom Huge Wireless, which relies on a 2.4 GHz wireless dongle for connectivity and a pair of AA's for power. The battery life is phenomenal, typically lasting 3 months or more on a single set. While I love the wirelessness of this mouse, the dongle has some major issues if plugged into the same USB hub as other devices. I typically have it plugged into the front USB ports on my PC, keeping it as close to the mouse as possible. However, when plugging in a USB key to transfer files, the mouse becomes almost useless, twitching about or disconnecting entirely until the drives are unplugged. And this is not an isolated incident on a single PC or USB drive. This has happened on every PC that I've tested it with. I eventually purchased a 4-port USB hub that attaches directly to my desk, and use that when transferring files over to a thumb drive. I feel if the Huge was offered with Bluetooth support, this would be much less of an issue, and wouldn't drastically affect performance, battery life, or even price of the device. This last month, I picked up a second Elecom mouse, this time in the Deft Pro. The feature set is nearly identical to the Huge, just in a slightly smaller form factor and with Bluetooth connectivity baked in. While the Bluetooth does solve a lot of my connectivity issues with the wireless Huge, I'm much less of a fan of this form factor. I feel like the body of this mouse is too convex, and the trackball is placed too far back in the chassis. My fingers have to curl quite a bit to take advantage of the full range of motion in the trackball, and my other fingers don't land nearly as well on top of the buttons. The Deft also includes a 2.4 GHz wireless dongle if you'd prefer that to Bluetooth connectivity, but it has the exact same issues in dropping signal as the Huge. I'm going to be keeping the Deft Pro, but likely just as a secondary mouse, not as a daily driver. So I bought another Huge, this time in the wired variety, to use on my editing workstation. Lastly, there is a very popular mod to perform on these mice, and that is replacing those synthetic ruby bearings with a set of ceramic ones, allowing your trackball to move smoother and with less rolling resistance. I ordered 2 10-packs of ceramic bearings on Amazon for $7 each, giving me extras just in case I drop them or Rambo decides to be a jerk. The process isn't too difficult. Just remove 5 screws around the perimeter, 2 screws inside the cup, and then 3 more holding the cup inside the chassis. Let me go ahead and do this mod real quick, get these bearings swapped out, and I'll be back with a first impression review in just a minute. And we're back. So the whole process to replace the bearings beginning to end took me about 17 minutes. Now, there are a couple extra screws that I didn't realize were there. There's actually a total of 7 screws on the outside perimeter instead of just 5 that I said earlier in the video. There's one right here below the label, and then this rubber pad actually has 2 screws under it instead of just 1 like there is on the other side. But overall, not a difficult process at all. And I will say, I'm fairly happy with the results. Now, it's not that the Elecom Huge has a bad trackball or it's rough or doesn't track very well, but this one is just ever so slightly smoother, and it's also making slightly less noise when the trackball is moving around, telling me that it's not just my perception or what I want to be true is what my brain's interpreting. I believe it actually is smoother. And of course, just to verify that, I'm gonna put in the 2-year-old trackball into the new bearings and the brand new trackball onto the old bearings. Yes, the new bearings are still smoother. And I think this is as good a place as any to wrap up this review. Overall, I am a pretty massive fan of the Elecom Huge. For $60, you get either a wired or a wireless trackball with 8 programmable buttons and pretty solid build quality. Now there are a couple drawbacks to be had, like the kinda spotty 2.4 GHz wireless quality, but overall I have been more than happy with this mouse in the 2 years that I've been using it, which is why I bought a couple more. There's also the Deft Pro, which I don't like quite as much, mainly from a personal ergonomics standpoint, but feature-wise I think it is just as good as the Elecom Huge. Plus it has some added connectivity bonuses, like the ability to go with a wired USB connection, Bluetooth connectivity, or 2.4 GHz wireless. My hands are a little bit on the bigger side, so it's just a little bit too small for me to use, but overall it is still a fantastic quality mouse. If you're interested in picking up any of these mice for yourself, I will have affiliate links down in the video description. Go give those a look. On your way down there, leave a comment, drop this video a like, and subscribe to Craft Computing if you haven't done so already. Follow me on Twitter at Craft Computing to keep up with my daily shenanigans, and if you like the content you see on this channel and want to help support me in what I do, consider joining the Patreon or Float Plane. Links are also down in the video description. Thank you all so much for watching this one, and as always, I will see you in the next video. Cheers, guys. Today's beer is from Ironhorse Brewing up in Ellensburg, Washington. It is the PB & Death, based around their honestly fantastic Quilter's Irish Death. In theory, this is the same exact beer, but with peanut butter. 6.53%. Now this is the second variation on Quilter's Irish Death that I've had. The first one I had was the Coffee Death, or Mocha Death I believe it was called, and while it was good as far as Quilter's Irish Death goes, it wasn't a good coffee beer. I'm hoping this one makes up for it by having a little bit more peanut butter, given that peanut butter is in the name. This is definitely a little bit creamier than the standard Irish Death, and the peanut flavor is giving it just a little bit of roastiness at the back end. That's very good. It's definitely got some peanut butter on the nose. You know, that's not half bad. Definitely has enough peanut butter where I could say, yeah, it belongs in the title. The warmer this gets, the more peanut butter is kind of poking through. It's not the best peanut butter I've ever had, but it's certainly peanut buttery. In fact, there's a little bit of, I don't want to call it fudge, but there's a dark chocolate bitterness from the Quilter's Irish Death that closest thing I can think of to compare it to would be like a peanut butter parfait from Dairy Queen. Pretty soft.